And welcome back to the morning drill. This morning we have State Representative Kathy Rapp joining us. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Luke and Mark. I'm fine. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Beautiful weather. Good to see you too.
Beautiful, yeah.
Great to be in
Spring is
Titusville.
here, huh?
Yeah. Well, at least for the day.
You don't represent the groundhog, do you?
No. He's not even a state animal, state anything. He should be, because it's such a big thing, especially after the movie and the promotion of Groundhog Day.
Well, I've covered that event for about 15 years, and I have to say I'm a little disappointed that the state lottery uses a groundhog too. It's like, can you come up with something original, maybe?
That was Governor Rendell who thought of Gus, so we now have two groundhogs. There you
have it, yeah. That explains a lot. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, that was Governor Rendell.
Well, what's been going on? We just had a news story last week that said our current governor, Governor Wolf, his approval ratings keep going down. We're almost ready to start a brand new budget when we don't even have last year's wrapped up. What can you tell us about what the attitude and the atmosphere is like in Harrisburg right now?
Well, this year was a pretty grueling year. The governor started out in March of last year, March 3rd, presented the budget to the House and Senate. And then we went through the normal thing that we do every year. We had appropriations hearings, and we had a budget on his desk with no new taxes by June 30th. But he took the opportunity to completely veto everything. Most governors, and this hasn't happened since Shapp, I believe, most governors will take the opportunity, if they disagree with something, they will do the line item veto. But he chose to veto the entire budget after June 30th. So that's really what started the whole dilemma that we were in for 2015. And we went through after June 30th. We had also put up his budget, which would have required $8 billion more dollars in the next couple years, and this current budget, which would have included a whole lot of taxes from somewhere, $8 billion worth. And when we put up his spending plan, the vote was 193-0. He did not receive one vote in the House, not from the Democrat leadership, not one rank and file member. No one wanted to vote for his budget.
So for a guy who's been lashing out against Republicans, what about those in his own party, as you say, who also said no?
Well, we're all in the same boat as members, but obviously they would not stand by their governor. Even in December, when we had a so-called framework, and our speaker, Mike Turzai, told the governor part of that framework is that we want pension reform. And he said, I'll get the votes for pension reform, and we were going to give him $1 billion extra in spending. I wasn't. The Senate had voted that agreed upon framework budget. But at the end of the day, when we put up the pension bill, not one Democrat voted for it. So here again, he doesn't even know what his own party will vote for to support him. So, but in the meantime, between June and December 23rd, I got home December 23rd is when we left, and then the Senate decided to put our House version budget to the governor, which he signed on December 29th. And I, quickly can go through the timeline, from March 3rd. June 1st is actually when we put up his budget, 193-0. And then we sent him House Bill 1192, which was $30.18 billion. And then liquor reform, he also vetoed that in its entirety. He vetoed the pension reform in its entirety. On August 25th is when we decided to try and override the governor's budget for those most needy line items: domestic violence, rape crisis services, the food stamp purchase program, safe schools, cancer screening, textbooks for non-public schools, services with children with special needs, and community-based family centers. He vetoed that emergency funding. On September 28th, we sent him Senate Bill 1000. That was the stopgap budget, which was pretty similar to our emergency funding, which he vetoed again on September 29th. And then we reconsidered his revised tax proposal in October. That amendment was defeated. On December 8th is when we passed 1460, the bill that he signed on December 29th. And December 23rd, the House just decided that this is the bill we're going with. This is our final 1460. And then the Senate to his desk, and he signed that on December 29th. Unfortunately, the governor still likes to use that veto pen. So for a governor who wanted more money in education, he immediately vetoed $6 billion out of the education, or out of that budget, $3 billion being education funds. And he also vetoed a lot of money out of the agriculture budget, and again, some line items for people with special needs. But at this point in time, when we're looking at that, we also were unable to pass any money for the higher education for the state schools or for the non-preferreds universities like Pitt-Titusville. We did not get any votes from the Democrats, and for the non-preferred votes we need 2/3, and we were not able to get the 2/3 of votes. So we had put more money in for agriculture. The governor blue-lined items for ag. And so the lines that he did veto, now we will be doing individual bills to try to restore those line items. Those bills will have to go through the legislative process. They have to be drafted. They have to go through committee. They have to go to the House floor. If they are passed, then they go to the Senate, to the committee, then to the Senate floor, and then to the governor's desk if they're agreed upon. And then he has the ability to either sign those into law or veto them all over again. And then in the meantime, on February 9th, he will be presenting to us the budget for 2016-2017.
This has been quite a contest of wills throughout the year. What are you hearing from your colleagues? What are you hearing from people in the district about this contest, that it's almost a power contest?
Well, what I am hearing is, because most people know, and even the governor has been up front with the fact that he wants more taxes. He wants more money out of your pocket, out of my pocket. We have looked at other revenue sources. For example, taxing every tobacco product and increasing that tax. We've looked at expanding gaming, which, I'm opposed to both of those. The constituents that I talk to, most of them, whether it's in Warren County, Forest County, or Crawford, say, we don't want our taxes raised. We pay enough into government, and we want you to hold the line. And that's exactly what this has been over, that the governor wanting those taxes that would have been in total about $8 billion. And so we have refused to put up the vote. And way back in June, he couldn't get the votes either for that budget that he wanted, not one member from his own party. So it's really been about the House in particular standing their ground and no more taxes. The Senate did have a bill that would have increased the budget, would have required taxes, but the House Republicans stood their ground and said, we are not willing to raise taxes on the people of Pennsylvania. So that's really been what it's been about, Mark, is this standoff regarding taxes. But that being said, a lot of the stopgap budget bill and the emergency funding bill, those were line items that were agreed upon by the administration and the House and Senate. And he chose to veto those bills for that emergency funding and the stopgap when he could have easily signed those into law long before December 29th to get the money to our senior centers and our family centers, rape crisis centers, and to our school districts. And even now that he has signed the bill, because he cut $6 billion, $3 billion being for education, school districts are receiving 87% of what they usually get from their line item.
What is his reasoning behind the kind of strategy that he's using?
I really can't answer that. I think even my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are trying to figure that out. Obviously, they're not putting up the votes for his budgets either. And it'll be very interesting when we go next Tuesday and hear what the governor has to say. He's going to be setting the tone in his speech, in his budget address. He will obviously be setting the tone for the budget for 16-17.
I don't understand how you can go ahead and have that speech when you don't even have this one wrapped up. We're here with State Representative Kathy Rapp. This is the Morning Drill on Stream Television and the Allegheny News Talk Sports Network. And real quick, just so you know, I don't mind the gambling because I came close up with Powerball. So just bring it on. I'm ready.
I'm probably a no vote.
Well, it sounds to me that the stage is being set for another contest of wills, if you will, coming up with this new budget consideration, the new message that'll be out. It seems so odd to me that the House and the Senate will be working on two budgets at the same time.
Well, in looking at it legislatively, because he signed that budget, he drove that money out, that budget could be considered finalized. But because he made those cuts, the House and Senate is committed to trying to get that money to some of our most needy people, as we were, from June 30th on, or, as we are every year. We're committed to trying to help people in the state. And as I said, we'll see what his tone is in his messaging on February 9th. And I think we'll have a very good idea of what kind of year we're going to have.
Do you think he's learned something from this? Do you think you guys have learned something from this?
I think the House Republicans have learned we're going to stand our ground. We're not going to vote for those taxes. It was unfortunate. I spent more days in November and December in Harrisburg than I did at home. And that's the day I did arrive home, was the evening of December 23rd. But our people just can't afford more money taken from them. They want to keep what they have in their pocket. They think they know best how to spend their money instead of government trying to spend it for them.
We hear, and Mark was talking to you prior to coming on about an event back in November, the rally over in Meadville, and it seemed like it was almost equal blame between the governor and the Republicans, and I think the tone was, okay, we know there's differences, but how do you come together and get this done? And again, you're talking about folks who were affected by this. This isn't everybody, but this is the folks who were immediately affected by that. Is that a fair assessment to kind of put blame on both sides?
Well, I guess, Luke, all I can say is that we attempted, after the veto, to do that emergency funding. And once he vetoed that in its entirety, agreed upon amounts of money in those line items. And then when the Senate tried to do the same thing in the stopgap, same thing. We're trying to get the money out there. It's agreed upon amounts, which would have given them 100% of the money, which is exactly what happened to most of those agencies that were probably there that day on December 29th, that drove out 100% of their money. I believe we did our job. We tried. We made three attempts and even more.
Is that why you think now you see his numbers really going down?
I think so. I think he's been continually running campaign ads against us, which is pretty much unheard of too. Even under Rendell didn't. This money, these ads are being paid for the Democratic Governors Association, but they're also being paid for by union dues. So, he's continuing on the campaign trail of, which does not make for good relationships either. So we have to stand up for ourselves and tell the people our side of the story.
Well, it sounds like, too, and as you mentioned, your fellow colleagues on the other side of the aisle disagreeing with him on certain things. He's asked Kathleen Kane to step down. She hasn't done it. I mean, is there anybody listening to him?
I really can't answer that. I guess some of the unions are listening to him. They're putting money into these campaign ads all over the state. He's even doing direct mailers to some of our freshmen and some of our even more senior legislators. He's actually sending out what we call campaign mailers, telling people, you're fix this impasse, tell legislator representative so-and-so to do the right thing. Well, we think we've done the right thing with the budget, stopgap, the emergency funding, all agreed upon, and then he vetoes it. So we can't quite figure out where he's coming from and, what he really is striving for.
Has this been a distraction to other things that you'd like to accomplish, or are you still working on other things behind the scenes?
Well, we are working on other things behind the scenes. I'm working on a major pro-life bill, which we'll be looking at, shortly down the road. And in the Senate passed paycheck protection that would disallow unions to have their union dues extracted from a person's paycheck, that they would actually have to sit down and write a check out for their union dues.
Thank you, by the way, because that'll save me with Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Let him.
I'm sure he's a big union guy, right? And
he's his own union.
Yeah. Of the state government committee in the House passed that bill in state government committee before we left last week, so I'm sure that's going to be coming to the House floor. And yes, there are other pieces of major legislation that we are working on, in our committees and with our other members, but certainly they've taken somewhat of the back burner in comparison to the budget. Once he gives his budget address, then we will have appropriations hearings, which is what we do every budget year, every year. So that'll be the next process for us. We bring in all the administrative agencies, the secretaries. It'll be interesting to hear what they have to say, because what we heard in the Capitol was that even some of the administrative agencies like labor and industry, welfare, our funding was all cut. Everything was cut. Our funding was cut. So they weren't even allowed to order anything other than paper and inkjet cartridges. But we were all in the same, everything was frozen, don't buy anything. Wages frozen. He cut our budget big time in the House and Senate, and fully funded his own office. And so those are issues that don't make for good rapport either.
Yeah, well, at the same time, though, we saw Representative Brad Roy selling cigarettes out of the back of his car.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Just to fund his office to keep the doors open.
I'll make sure I'll relay that to Brad.
I'm kidding. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, this has been quite a legislative and executive kind of a process. The one thing we really haven't mentioned is the partisan politics that has entered into this, and it does rear its ugly head in that. How do you see that? How do you deal with it?
That's an interesting question, and I was at another meeting in Warren the other day, and that same question was asked. With the rank and file members, we're all colleagues, and we all have to work together. We serve on committees together. Do we agree on everything? No, but we still have that that rapport that we have, with one another. I would say where you really see that, because the people really negotiating the budget face to face are the leadership team in the 4 caucuses. So they're the ones, our appropriations chair, our majority leader, our speaker, our whip, they're sitting at the table actually doing the negotiations. So if the politicalness of the job is raising its ugly head, it's in those meetings. Not so much, except for like our members who are getting those campaign mailers, they're not real happy with the governor. But for the most part, inside the House chamber, we're still all getting along. But I would say where you're seeing that is in those negotiating meetings with the leadership.
That's got to be a frustrating experience.
It is very frustrating. About December 22nd, we're looking at one another and saying, and why do we want to run again? So, it's tough, and certainly we are hoping that the governor will take a different approach this year with the budget. And even if he vetoes items, it's better than a total veto. One line item, though, that he did veto that does concern us is that he vetoed a line item for corrections that involves salaries. And the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania said, when Rendell, he was famous for cutting out state employees and not paying them during a budget impasse. So the court said, if state employees go to work, they deserve to be paid. So here he cut out the salaries for people in corrections when the Supreme Court has said you have to pay state employees. So I don't know if we're going to take that part to court or if we're just going to do another appropriations bill for our corrections line items, or how we're going to correct that, because there was some discussion that we don't see how he legally could do that.
State Representative Kathy Rapp joining us this morning. Thank you so much. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Please come back.
Oh, I will. I will.
All right, because there's a lot more going on that we can get into.
Yep. We have another budget coming up.
That's right. Yes, we do. And the old one.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. It's great seeing you.
Yeah, it's great seeing you too.
All right. The morning drill will continue right after this.